first thing I noticed about this play, and what I found most interesting, was it was actually realistic. I guess the idea of the realism play. That's the first play that we've read that's been realistic. I just thought it was interesting that a there were real people, real jobs, real relationships, very unlike the other plays we've read, and I thought that made the play much easier to follow, and I think it made it more enjoyable for me, honestly, because I didn't really have to look up too much. I kind of understood what was going on. One of the values that we see a lot was hard work, labor, especially for Esther and Mame, because they obviously two very different jobs, but they still had to work hard to support themselves. They knew that they had to make money, so they did that in whatever way they could. So, and like with Esther, the idea of marrying a rich man that Mrs. Dixon put in her head, she didn't really have to go along with that because she had her own work, her own job that she made money with. And that kind of leads to the second value, which was marriage. So Mrs. Dixon says on page 36 that she's not ashamed of how she obtained the boarding house because she married well off. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have Esther, who doesn't care at all about the money side of things. So I think we definitely see the value of marriage, but between Esther and Mrs. Dixon, you see it in two very different ways. One was, in Esther's case, was more so for love, at least she thought it was at first, and Mrs. Dixon was more so of a way to kind of move up. It's not a great phrase for it, but to just marry someone well off. One thing I didn't understand was when they said George's accent was more Barbadian than in the first act. I didn't really know that Barbados is a country, honestly, so just looking that up made that more clear, what that was referring to. And I feel like this play helped to reinvent African American stereotypes and their experiences, because it really shows Esther as being very independent, hardworking, and showing a great deal of perseverance. She doesn't have the best life, but she always makes the most of it. So I think this really kind of reinvented that idea of showing how hard she worked and how she found success on her own. And I feel like it's definitely easy to say that stereotypes about African Americans exist today. One that I've seen a lot was African Americans in college athletics. I've heard people, I've read it online about saying, well, they only got into this school because of their athletic ability. It really kind of knocks their intelligence, so obviously a very negative stereotype that exists today. And two questions I would ask were, why do you think Esther didn't entertain the idea of meeting Mr. Charles? And then the second one was, do you find it strange that Mrs. Van Buren shared so much with Esther when she was white and Esther was African American?